20 years ago, this date, September the 11th, was seared into America's memory. We remember the innocent who lost their lives, and we pay tribute to those who gave their lives so that others might live. For many of our citizens, the wounds of that morning remain fresh. Firefighters and police officers still choke up at the memory of fallen comrades. Young children and teenagers still long for the parents who will never share the joys of their youth nor guide them to adulthood. Fellow Americans take bittersweet pride in loved ones who refused to be victims and gave America our first victory in the war on terror. We remember as churches, synagogues, and temples opened their doors to all people. We remember as strangers carried each other out of the buildings and responding with extraordinary acts of heroism. We remember the courage in office workers trapped on the high floors of burning skyscrapers who called home so that their last words to their families would be of comfort and love. We remember the bravery of the Pentagon staff who made it out of the flames and smoke and then ran back inside to answer cries for help. We remember the first responders who mobilized within minutes and took part in the largest rescue operation in the history of New York City. We remember the courage in passengers aboard Flight 93 who charged the cockpit, saving an untold number of lives on the ground. And we remember as those had shared with those who had lost. We also remember the sacrifices made by our nation's armed forces to keep us safe. Every one of our troops is a volunteer, and since the attacks of September 11th, more than 2 million Americans have stepped forward to put on our nation's uniform. Over 50,000 soldiers, sailors, airmen, and guardsmen have suffered terrible injuries, and over 6,000 have given the ultimate sacrifice in defense of freedom. America cherishes their memory, and we pray for their families. Teach us to be patriotic, but humbly so. Teach us to see the frailty, beauty, and value of life in light of this tragedy, rather than using it to elevate trivial difference to the heights of divisive reasons for hatred. Remind us of the way the true heart of our nation's people was revealed in open arms, open doors, and open hearts. May we never forget that on that day we did not focus on nationality, wealth, race, or education. We focused on humanity and love for our fellow Americans. Install in us the deepest sense to be that people once again. We lift up to you all those who, even today, 20 years later, suffer from the loss. May we continue to heal and help each other just as we did that day. We will never forget.
The cockpit is not answering their phone. Our number 1 is in staff, and our 5 is in staff.
The thing I remember most about the morning of 9/11 was I was heading into work, and I just remember saying, boy, what a beautiful day this is.
A nice, beautiful, clear day, and the day went on as normal until everything started to unfold.
And I received a phone call from my wife asking me that I hear about a plane crashing into the world Trade Center.
Carmen, a young lady that worked for us, she came in and said that a plane had just crashed into the World Trade Center.
At first, I thought that somebody just flew too low, and it was a horrible error in judgment by the pilot.
I did think a lot about it, but I didn't think it was a major plane that crashed.
And when a second plane hit it, and it was in my head was that I believe we were being attacked. And I went up onto the roof that morning and saw the first tower in flames.
My backyard faced Manhattan. This was my turf, and I took it personally.
The first reported certified death was Father Michael Judge. He was a chaplain for the New York City Fire Department, and Frankie Campbell in Manhattan had the privilege of handling his funeral.
We handled, I'd say about 10 funerals. I believe 2 of them had remains, and they had the full funeral. The others were a memorial service.
3,000 people who perished. Obviously, more than half of them, probably 2/3 or 3/4 were never found.
We were doing to help them say goodbye and have closure is filling caskets up with like mementos and having a service as if they were in the casket.
And it was sad that people really didn't get the proper way to say goodbye to their loved one. And that will be something I will always remember.
After that day, I looked at our job a little differently because, when you realize people aren't going to be able to say goodbye or to have a traditional type funeral.
I look back at the family first family that we served, and the wife was in her late 20s, 7 months pregnant with a 2-year-old daughter.
I dealt with the sister and the uncle of the surviving spouse because she was 8 months pregnant with their second child.
I always think about all of the children that were born out of that time that lost their dads, all the families that lost their sons,
But for the families that lost their spouse, father, mother, sister, brother, child, whatever it may be.
And all of the brave men and women who ran into the building when people were running out.
The men, the women, the children that passed away in 9/11 will not be forgotten.
I always talk about 9/12 because that was the day I felt like our country came together, where it didn't matter who you were or what your affiliations were, we were all together in this.
Also, in different states and the entire United States, we all came together united as one. And basically we mourned together, and I think that helped everybody. I don't think there was anyone that wasn't affected by what took place.